point out that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 497th edition of Energy Week with George Harvey and Tom Fennell. Tom, unfortunately, is not able to make it here this week. He would normally have been on the phone from home, but we had some computer issues, and so we decided that I should just do the show by myself. So this show is news from the past week that were items that appeared at my blog, geoharvey.com. You can go to geoharvey.com and find them. The easiest way to do that is to click on the date on the calendar. The show is starting on Thursday, November 3rd, which is a week ago today, and we do a week's news, so we end with Wednesday, the 9th. And if you look down on the screen of a computer, if you're on a computer and watching this, and look down on the screen, you can find a file that you can download that has the links in it. And you can also find a website that you go to, which is a place that Tom and I find. And those are places that you can go to get the information, to link to the article if you want to follow the article. There's a couple of articles this week, Tom would usually say this, that were really kind of stunning. So we're going to start off with a picture of wind turbines. This reminds me of a story I saw in a movie once about a cowboy who took all his clothes off and jumped into a bunch of prickly pears, and somebody said, "Why?" And the guy who was telling the story said he thought it was a good idea at the time. There's no way I would get involved in these things. Anyway, this is from PV Magazine USA, and it is on the 3rd of November. The title is U.S. to deploy 550 gigawatts of new renewables by 2030. The American Clean Power Association projects that the United States may deploy 550 gigawatts of new renewable energy projects by 2030. Wind, solar, and energy storage capacity will help pave the way for the nation to cut economy-wide emissions by 40% below 2005 levels. And the work will create 1 million jobs. 550 gigawatts, the old Vermont Yankee nuclear power plant was about a little less than 2/3 of a gigawatt, but its capacity factor was higher than wind or solar. So you have to figure that in general, wind and solar would have capacity factors that would be somewhat less than half of that of nuclear. So we can figure that this would be like building 200 large nuclear reactors. And that's what they're figuring is going to be going up in that time. So our next item is from CNN. We have a nice picture of Kilimanjaro, and which of course is a big mountain in Africa. Those trees look distinctly African. The title is, "These glaciers are on track to disappear within the next 30 years, new report shows." And the reason why we have a picture of Kilimanjaro there is because the glaciers on Kilimanjaro are expected to disappear in the next 30 years. Recently, researchers at the UN Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization found that glaciers on 1/3 of the planet's most beautiful parks and protected areas are set to disappear by 2050, even if global warming is slowed. Now, this brings a fact to light, and the fact is that if we stopped emissions immediately, if we just stopped doing the emissions, if we went to net zero immediately, so that the level of emissions in the atmosphere was no longer going up, climate change would continue for some period of time. Scientists don't know exactly how long, but the projections range from 25 years to a couple hundred years. And the reason for this is because the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere that's warming it up is warming it up, and it will continue to warm it up. It's kind of like putting a pot of water on a stove and turning the gas on. You bring the water to a boil, you put in an egg with the idea that it's going to be a 3-minute egg. Now, if after 3 minutes you just shut the gas off, the water would stop boiling, but it would still be a lot hotter than the egg. You've got to get the egg out of the water in order to stop the egg from cooking. And getting the egg out of the water is like drawing down the carbon dioxide that's already in the air. It's not an easy task. So when they say they are set to disappear by 2050, even if global warming is slowed, they mean precisely that. They mean that this is not likely to, those glaciers are not something that you could save unless you could figure out some way to get a lot of carbon dioxide out of the air very quickly. And unfortunately, you'd have to get it out of the oceans too, because most of the carbon dioxide that's released into the air very quickly is found in the oceans, which is why the oceans are acidifying. Okay, our next item is from Clean Technica. And we have a picture of an indoor farm in Kentucky. Let me put that up. The title of the article is Kentucky Emerges from Solar Energy Stealth Mode. The state of Kentucky has been bumping around in the lower tier of states for installed PV capacity, but its solar energy wallflower days are coming to an end. A new green hydrogen hub, one of the world's largest indoor farms, and a giant water battery are all parts of this mix. This farm, by the way, it's hard to imagine for a person who grew up in farm country what the implications are of growing hydroponically, typically, vegetables indoors, especially if you use natural gas to heat this place when it gets cold, and you exhaust the combustion products into the greenhouse so that the carbon dioxide is available to the plants for growth. You can get phenomenal growth in these greenhouses. And I did an interview with an organization called LEAF. If you go down to the Brattleboro Food Co-op, they sell the LEAF products. It's LE with a straight bar over the E, F. And the people there told me that a 1-acre greenhouse can produce 1 million pounds of produce in 1 year, which is just an astonishing figure. But it means that the greenhouse produces perhaps 40 times as much as you would get out of a normal farm. So the use of these farms is really kind of astonishing. But as this article says, they're starting to do solar power. They're starting to do a water battery, which I think, I don't remember what that means from the article, but I think it means that they're planning on doing pumped storage. Okay, we're up to the 4th of November, which is Friday, and we have a picture here of a an autonomous taxi. Let me put that up. Whoops, wrong button. The autonomous taxi, and as I look at this and I think this is an autonomous taxi, that means it's a taxi that has no driver. You tell it where you want it to go and it'll take you there. And okay, so it's autonomous, there's no driver. Why is there a windshield wiper? I don't know. But anyway, this article comes from Clean Technica, and the title of the article is "This Little Autonomous Vehicle Getting Use at New York's JFK International Airport." Navia, a little autonomous shuttle company, is not usable in nearly as many environments as the tech from other companies, but it is effective on various simple routes. The company's latest contract is with New York City's JFK International Airport. So they're going to be running these things on specified routes at JFK Airport so that people can get from one part of the airport to another. Clearly the vehicle has a very limited need for knowing about streets and things of that nature. It just goes around the airport. But we are moving into the direction of these autonomous vehicles, and I don't know that I would trust them. The data that I've seen says that they are far safer than human drivers, but there's a kind of leap of understanding that we would have to get through in order to have these things make me feel comfortable. Nevertheless, it may be a move toward a safer future. Okay, our next item is from CNN, and let me put that up. The title is "Why High Temperatures Can Make Planes Too Heavy to Take Off." Okay, the temperature goes up in the air, and that means that the plane is suddenly too heavy. Does that make sense? The synopsis of this article is: our planet's rising temperatures are making it harder for planes to take off at certain airports, presenting yet another challenge to civil aviation. As heat waves become more frequent, the problem could extend into more flights, forcing airlines to leave passengers on the ground. Well, what's happening here is really not all that difficult to understand. As the temperature goes up, the air becomes thinner. And that thinner air makes it harder for the airplane to be able to take off. In a higher temperature, a plane that's aloft would not have a problem because they're aloft and they are operating at a far higher speed. But takeoff or landing for that matter, at an airport requires that the airplane be flown at a lower speed. So as the air gets thinner because it is hotter, it becomes more difficult for the planes to take off. It's just a simple matter of physics. But the problems that come out of that are something that can't be ignored, and so climate change will have its effect on our ability to use aircraft. Okay, our next item is from Renews. We have a picture of wind turbines in Ireland. As far as I know, these wind turbines are actually in Ireland. The title is "Irish Wind Output for October Nudges 50%. Wind Energy Ireland has released its October wind energy report, which shows that wind energy provided 47% of Ireland's electricity in October of 2022. The latest figures mean that wind energy has supplied 33% of Ireland's electricity demand this year to the end of October. So they've been building up the number probably through the year as they've been adding more wind turbines. This is good news. The Ireland had a problem only a couple of years ago, which was the the amount of renewable energy in Ireland was too low. Ireland was emitting too much carbon dioxide and was really behind, and they were worried that they were going to have to pay a fine to the European Union because they were not doing what they had promised to do. And now, clearly, things have changed, so they're in better shape than they had been. We're up to Saturday, November 5th, and we have here a picture of a crane. And I could just imagine if Tom Fennell were here, the conversation we would have about that crane, because that's obviously not a real crane with a real background. It looks like it could be a real crane, a photograph of a real crane that has been superimposed on a background, but I think this is a completely computer-generated image. This is from a company called Senebogen. The article is from Clean Technica, and the title is New 50-Ton Battery-Powered Electric Crane. Just as in every other vehicle market, electric cranes are starting to arrive. The 653E Electro battery from Senebogen, developed with Dutch dealer Van der Heuvel, is a 50-ton battery-powered electric crane. It answers the need for heavy equipment that meets the needs of quiet, clean cities. And this is something where you know what it's like to be in a city. You know what it's like to be in a noisy place, perhaps a polluted place. And if you go around construction equipment in a city, you know what that's like. And here, they've got a solution to the problem of construction equipment in a city. And so they're starting to deliver these things. And you know, we're also starting to get cities that are putting limits on the amount of time people will be allowed to use construction equipment that's powered by internal combustion engines because of the noise and the pollution. Okay, our next item is also from Clean Technica. I'm going to put that up. Here we have an electric motorcycle from Lightning Motorcycles. Innovate and Lightning Motorcycles partnership creates a 5-minute fast charge for electric motorcycles. That's the title. Innovate makes batteries with high energy density and extreme fast charging. Lightning Motorcycles makes electric motorcycles that set performance records. The two combined efforts on Lightning's Strike Carbon motorcycle. And basically what this tells us is something important, I think, because it relates to other electric vehicles. The technology that's being used in this motorcycle is really a technology that could be used in some other vehicles, possibly automobiles. And if you can have a 5-minute charge in a motorcycle, it might be that you could have a 10-minute charge in a car. I don't know. But clearly, this is an evidence of more progress that's being made on batteries. And I think that could be important. So our next item is, we have a picture here of Lombard Street in San Francisco. Lombard Street is said to be the most crooked street in the world. You see 2 turns in Lombard Street. My recollection is that there is a total of 8 turns on this street. I think that's 1 block, it's 8 turns. Because it's so steep that a lot of vehicles would not make it up and down if they had to go up straight. So the people who built the street have a suggested speed on it of 5 miles an hour, and well, this is from Yahoo News UK, and the reason that street was chosen is because it's kind of like there's a lot of park on that street. The title of the article is Outdoor Living Rooms and Renewable Power: How San Francisco is Fighting Climate Change. Air pollution and traffic congestion plague cities worldwide, but it doesn't have to be this way. In San Francisco, a number of environmental initiatives encourage eco-friendly habits, increasing greenery, which I think you can see in this particular article, creating a better space for everyone. Well, we have scenery, we have trees, we have flowers, we have what looks like a palm tree. This is a greener city because of the way this particular street is, but there are a lot of places in San Francisco that are similar in certain respects. So San Francisco is heading in a direction that's greener than other cities. There are a lot of cities that are doing the same kind of thing though, and they're looking for greener areas, more trees, more places where people can go out on the grass and so forth. Okay, we are up to Sunday, November 6th, and we have an article here from BBC. This is going to require a little bit of explanation, I think, when I get this up. Let me read the title and the article first, the synopsis. Will we ever live in city-sized buildings? Okay, enclosed cities have become a narrative shorthand for futuristic settlements in science fiction. Many are self-contained habitats, incorporating all essential infrastructure, including energy generation, food production, waste management, and water. Some have already been proposed for construction. And what you're seeing in this particular image is a enclosed city, and it's you only see one end of it because it looks like in the upper right hand corner of this picture it ends, but that's not the end of it. It's just as far as you can see. This thing is 105 miles long. It is a single building that has been proposed, and it is, I think, 15 stories tall, perhaps. So this thing is huge, and it would have a large population living in it. Obviously, if you live at one end and you have a friend at the other end, it's going to take you a little time to get to the friend's house. But, you know, I think that the idea is friends live closer together so they can visit more easily. NEOM is a company that is involved in the proposal for building this city, and but the article has other pictures of other very, very large structures that would house large numbers of people, and I don't know how I feel about this. It does feel kind of silly in a sense. But anyway, there we are. We have an article coming up now that is, I think, extraordinary. This is from Clean Technica. I'll put up the picture so that you can see it. The title is Orders for Eviation or Eviation Alice electric plane past $2 billion. Okay, on September 27th, Eviation's Alice electric plane conducted its first flight at Moses Lake Grant County International Airport in Washington State. And this isn't part of the synopsis that I'm reading, but I can tell you it was up for 8 minutes, or a little over 8 minutes. It reached an altitude of 3,500 feet, performed basically exactly as it was hoped to. And I'll finish the synopsis now. Now, Eviation Aircraft has announced that the order book for all-electric Alice airplane has passed a total of $2 billion. So their successful test flight was on the 27th of September, And the $2 billion mark for the sales was surpassed on something like the 4th of November, 3rd of November, something. So 6 weeks passed between the time of the successful test of the aircraft and the $2 billion dollar order mark. I would point out that I don't know how much, but there were orders that were placed for this aircraft before the successful test. The other thing that you have to understand about the aircraft is that it has been tested successfully now before it's actually sold and delivered to purchasers. It has to be certified. I don't know how long that process is going to take. I don't think the article said how long it would take, but it's not something that happens overnight. So they have a little work to do yet before they can actually deliver these things. I'll go back to the image. This aircraft is a small commercial aircraft for moving passengers from one place to another. It has room for 9 passengers. The aircraft can move at a speed that is something in excess of 250 miles an hour, and it has a range of about 250 miles, a little bit over that. So the maximum flight on this thing is about an hour long. This is not going to fly you from Boston to Miami, but it is something that is seen by air transportation companies as sufficiently desirable that a number of them have put a lot of money up to buy the aircraft when they appear. And I think this tells you that they're really interested, the customers are really interested in reducing the carbon emissions that are associated with passenger aviation. From my point of view, if I wanted to, when I wanted to visit my son, who lives in Wisconsin, he said, "I'll take care of the trip," and I said, "I want to go by train." And the reason I did that is because of several factors, but a large part of it is the carbon emissions of aircraft. And he went ahead and bought tickets for a plane. But you know, that's what sons are for, isn't it? The point that I'm making is there are other ways of going that are a lot cheaper, but in terms of carbon emissions. But with this Alice plane, the carbon emissions are going to be low. This thing will run on electricity. It's got two motors powering it, and so it's a substantial reduction. And I think I'd like to mention that there are a lot of companies looking into reducing the emissions associated with aviation, and some of them, for example, are saying that we should return basically to blimps or dirigibles as ways to get people from one place to another in long distance. For example, you might get on an airship in New York City, and it would have a bunk for you so that you could sleep there, and you sleep the next night and possibly the night after that while this thing is in the air, and then you come to the UK if that's where you're going. And this is a whole lot faster than travel by ship, but it is significantly slower than travel by jet. And I think some people would like doing that. I think I would enjoy a leisurely trip more, but you know, we'll see what happens. Okay, the next item that we have is from Clean Technica, and it has a picture here of a Volvo XC40. The title is Volvo Australia to sell only electric cars by 2026. It's not all that far away. Volvo Group is one of the car manufacturing brands that has made a commitment to switch to EVs by 2030. But in Volvo Australia, Volvo Australia announced it has decided to step this up a notch by vowing to sell EVs only in Australia by 2026, well ahead of the car company's global commitment. I think what we're seeing is the changeover. And to tell you the truth, this is not terribly surprising to me, because in much of the world, the automotive industry is basically in a deep depression. If you look at just internal combustion cars that run on gasoline or diesel oil, the sales worldwide are down 30%, 35%, something like that. This is a serious problem, except sales of electric vehicles have been growing very dramatically. Now, part of the reason that the automotive industry is in depression is because of COVID-19. But there are a number of factors that are involved in this, and people are starting to get on the bandwagon, as it were, going in the direction of electric vehicles. Okay, we're up to Monday, November 7th. We have a picture of another plane. This particular plane is a vertical takeoff and landing air taxi. Vertical takeoff and landing is called VTOL. First self-flying 4-seat all-electric vertical takeoff and landing air taxi is the title. This is from Clean Technica. Whisk Aero, which is the source of that image, by the way, claims it has developed the first self-flying, fully electric 4-seat air taxi. This is its 6th generation air taxi, reportedly, quote, designed to meet and exceed rigorous commercial safety standards, making it one of the safest systems in aviation, end quote. And that is according to Whisk Aero. And that is obviously another sign that things are changing. If you happen to be at an airport and you want to go to a building in Manhattan, downtown Manhattan, that happens to have a landing place on the roof or something like that, this would really cut the amount of time that you have in the air significantly, or I should say in transit, because you could take a subway, okay. You could take a taxi, okay. To get from one of the airports to downtown Manhattan could take an hour. Using this thing, it might take 10 minutes or less. So if you're in a hurry, it might be very much worthwhile to do this kind of thing. Our next story is from CNN, and we have a picture here of bales of alfalfa. I'm not sure exactly where these bales of alfalfa are. I don't think this is, this is from CNN, as I said, and the title of the story is "Wells Are Running Dry in Drought-Weary Southwest as Foreign-Owned Farms Guzzle Water to Feed Cattle Overseas." And the synopsis says, just as the Colorado River Basin is in crisis, aquifers are rapidly depleting from overuse, worsening drought, and rampant growth in agriculture. Huge foreign-owned farms are growing thirsty crops like alfalfa to feed to livestock overseas. So they're planting the alfalfa that you see baled here in a place which is droughty to begin with. Alfalfa is a crop that requires a lot of water, and that water is being used on the crop. The crop is baled, and then The crop might be in California, but it's going to wind up feeding cattle that live somewhere else, maybe Korea, maybe, I don't know. But nevertheless, it just seems like a bad idea. And when you look at this particular article has pictures of groundwater and typical wells, and what's happening is the typical home well goes down about 150 feet. It used to be that it would be able to collect water, but at 150 feet now, it's about 100 feet or 150 feet higher than the water table. And so you can't get water out of the home well anymore, and the water is being pumped out underground to feed the alfalfa, and the water table just gets lowered constantly. And so we're running into trouble. This is not a good thing. Okay, the next article is from Clean Technica. We have a picture here of, oh, there you go. Sorry. EV SUV and an EV pickup. These are both Hummer brand. GMC Hummer EV pickup and SUV sold out for at least 2 years. Okay, I'm going to read the synopsis and then make a comment. It looks like there's some bad news if you want to purchase a 2022 GMC Hummer EV pickup or SUV. They're sold out, and it seems a waiting list is 2 or more years long. GM cannot keep up with the high demand, so prospective buyers are being waitlisted. Obviously, people want these things. They're trying to buy them, and GM wants to make them because they want to sell them to the people who want to buy them. But as I said, the internal combustion machine market is in depression, and the EV market is growing. In the last couple of years, it was not astonishing to me to see that sales of some particular electric vehicle had increased over 100% in 1 year, which is kind of amazing growth. And the car companies really pay attention to that kind of thing. Their business is to make cars and sell them. And if they can't do business with internal combustion engines, they're going to go to EVs. And the people I know who have driven EVs have almost all loved them. I hear from a couple of people that they really didn't love them, but that's I don't know why that was, but it does happen. Nevertheless, the Tesla, of course, never made internal combustion cars, but the legacy automakers made internal combustion cars, and they've got to move away from them because the world is moving away from them. Okay, we're up to Tuesday, September 8th. We have a picture of a nuclear power plant. This particular article is from Renew Economy. The title is, France electricity prices surge past €1,000 per megawatt hour as more nuclear reactors close for winter. The synopsis says the wholesale electricity prices in France for the middle of winter surged above €1,000 per megawatt hour. Now, €1,000 per megawatt hour is $1 per kilowatt hour wholesale. And what that means is that the wholesale price of electricity in the futures market was 5 times as high as the retail price of electricity in Vermont, which has a high retail price. And that is a situation that is kind of frightening. This is after EDF revealed more problems and more outages at its reactors. EDF is the operator of the world's biggest nuclear fleet, and the nuclear reactors that EDF owns are, well, most of them are in France at least. It's possible that all of them are, except for the ones that it has built elsewhere. For example, it's been building nuclear reactors in the UK, but the big majority of its nuclear reactors is in France. And basically, the problem here is that 75% of the electricity in France comes from nuclear reactors. They come pretty close. That is to say, the people of France come pretty close to having all their eggs in one basket. And that basket has not paid off the way that it might have this year. So the prices have gone through the roof. And as I said, you know, the wholesale price is 1,000 euros per megawatt hour. The normal wholesale price might be 65 euros per megawatt hour, or 60 euros per megawatt hour, something like that. So this is a huge, huge multiple of what it could be. Okay, we've got an article here from the National. And the article has a picture of solar panels. The title is "World Must Double Renewable Power Targets to Achieve Net Zero, IRENA." IRENA is all in capital letters. The world needs to double its renewable power targets for 2030 to achieve net zero emissions, according to the International Renewable Energy Agency, which is, of course, IRENA. Countries aim to reach 5.4 terawatts of installed renewable capacity by the end of the decade, and that is about half of the 10.8 terawatts that are needed. So the people at IRENA have calculated what they think is a correct projection of the amount that we need to counter climate change. And you know, I wasn't involved in that projection, but I can easily believe that we're only doing about half of what's needed. Anyway, let's move on here. We have an article from Clean Technica, and this, I will put it up for you. This is a map. Sorry, it's a map of South Dakota wind energy resources. And it was prepared by NREL. We see the NREL in the lower right corner of the screen there. That's the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, which does remarkable work, I think. This article is from Clean Technica, and the title is "South Dakota Cures the Renewable Energy Blues." The political knives are still out when the topic turns to climate change, but it looks like the energy transition is going to happen one way or the other. A case in point is the red state of South Dakota, which has now amassed enough renewable energy to fulfill its own electricity needs and then some. So basically what the article is saying is that South Dakota has enough renewable energy capacity that it can provide its own electricity on a large scale, so that they could generate enough electricity to provide for a year's use in a year. The problem, of course, being that with renewables, as with anything else, the generation of electricity has to be equal to the demand, and that means that the amount of electricity going on the grid has to be modified to meet the demand. And solar and wind power happen when the energy is available. Batteries work for their purpose, and actually batteries produce more valuable electricity than, for example, nuclear power, because nuclear power is inflexible. At least so far it has been inflexible. If a plant is designed to produce 900 megawatts, it's going to produce 900 megawatts. you cannot ramp it up and down quickly to meet demand, which goes up and down radically over periods of time that are as short as just a few minutes, and does it all day, every day. A nuclear power plant, for example, is going to have other kinds of power plants to back it up because it is inflexible. It's going to meet the minimum demand. That's what the base load is. It's a base load power plant. It meets the base load or the minimum demand that is expected over a period of time, which might be the reactor's lifetime. And if the consumers use more electricity than the minimum, which they almost always do, that amount is met by other power sources. That amount is met by natural gas load following plants, or by hydropower, or by peaking plants. And the electricity from those is very much more expensive. So this is an issue that is important in terms of where are you getting your electricity, how much does the electricity cost, and so forth. This picture shows South Dakota as having a very large amount of wind power available to it, particularly in that lower left section of the map around Rapid City, and certain other areas that are up, in areas where they're exposed and the wind is going to be strong. And they've already taken up enough wind and solar power, almost all wind and hydropower, to provide themselves through the year with the amount of electricity they need. Okay, the next item that we have coming up is that we're up to Wednesday, November 9th. And the next item up is from CNN, and the title is "Former NBA Champion is Changing How the World Builds to Fight the Climate Crisis." In 2019, a hurricane devastated the Bahamas. Today, the country is building what it claims to be the world's first carbon-negative housing community to reduce the likelihood of future climate disasters and to ease the shortage of homes that were caused by that storm. Now, this is a Partana home prototype. I want to get that up for you. The article goes into a bit into this kind of home, which is built in such a way that it uses and requires on an ongoing basis as little as possible the resources that contribute to climate change. This looks like it's on a concrete pad. I don't know, perhaps it is. But the design and construction of this house is supposed to be very well attuned to getting into a carbon negative situation where the people in the house would actually not be contributing any carbon emissions for climate change, that they aren't also drawing down the same amount. And this home is supposed to be going into a carbon negative housing community, and it'll be interesting to see where that goes. But it is a matter of drawing down the carbon dioxide faster than it's being emitted. And honestly, I think this could be built, this kind of thing could be built in a lot of different places. It doesn't have to go into a place that's sunny and so forth as Bahamas are, but it is yeah. Anyway, our next one is from the BBC. We have a picture of flooding. This is in Western Sydney, and by the way, that flood is not this year. It's some place in the near past. But Australia has been suffering from drought and fires, but it's also been suffering from flooding. And this is from the BBC. The title is "Once a Comfort, Rain is Now Ruining Australia's Mood." The city of Sydney has seen around 170 days of rain so far in 2022. There have been more rainy days than dry ones. And with almost a quarter of the year still to go, Sydney broke its annual rainfall record last month. More than 2.3 meters, which is 90 inches of rain, has fallen on the city. That is mind-boggling. That is a huge amount of rain to fall in 1 year. That would mean that Sydney, Australia is among the, you would expect it to be surrounded by tropical rainforests, or at least rainforests. But what's happening here is almost all of eastern Australia this year has had much more rain than it had normally. It would normally get over the course of a year, and this is with a couple of months to go in the year, and so they're looking at this and saying, okay, if we have no more rain for the entire remainder of the year, we're going to be in territory where it's still record-breaking by a lot. But if we have any more rain, it just breaks the record by that much more. And of course, this is all brought about because climate change makes for instability in weather. And what that means is you're going to have, if the weather is warmer, that might mean hotter temperatures. It might mean things dry out faster. But it also means that more rain is going to come down. And part of the problem with that is that the rain might not come down where you want it. So anyway, our last item is from Clean Technica. And I get kind of a kick out of this. This bus is a double-deck bus running down a road in Northern Ireland. The title of the article is Electric Bus Boom, Northern Ireland Buying 100 Electric Buses. The UK's Department for Infrastructure is providing £88 million in funding to TransLink to buy 100 zero-emission electric buses, as well as EV charging infrastructure to support them. The buses are to be used in Northern Ireland. They will be built by Wright Bus. And the thing that this reminds me of is when I was younger, living in Devon, and the area that we lived in was just the land was just completely covered by plots of land that were surrounded by hedgerows, and the result of that was that the roads wound around quite a lot. There were very few straight sections of road, as you see in this picture. And the roads were narrow, and of course in this picture they look narrow, but I think those roads in Devon were narrower. There was, the road surface was about 2 feet lower than the surrounding countryside, with that earth that was removed piled up next to the road on the other side of a ditch, because there was a ditch by the road about 8 inches wide, big enough to swallow a tire if you wandered into it, I'm sure. But the dirt was piled up next to that, which meant that you had a mound of dirt running down along the road that was probably from the roadbed at least 5 feet tall, maybe 6. And then on top of that was a hedge which went along the whole thing, which might have been 6 feet tall, maybe more. So as you went down that road, you were on a narrow road that looked like it had green walls on both sides, 12 feet, maybe 15 feet tall. And you'd be driving along down one of these things and winding around, and all of a sudden there, smack dab in front of you, is a double-decker, not electric, but a double-decker bus. They didn't know about electric buses in those days. The people in the UK love these double-decker buses, and I can understand why, because you can move twice as many passengers on the same footprint on the road, and as long as you don't have to worry about running into something that is low over the road, you're in good shape. Anyway, Northern Ireland is buying 100 of them, and they are going to use them to for transportation in that country. So that's it for Energy Week for the week. The only thing I've got here is fini. We do have a wish for you, which is have a marvelously convenient week. And I will wave goodbye. Tom would wave goodbye, but of course he doesn't know that the show is ending right now, so we can wish Tom well. He's going to have a little bit of difficulty getting his computer back together, because we trying to get things set up so that he could get online on the phone to talk to us here. The computer got kind of moved around a little bit and stopped functioning normally, and so he's going to have to put that back together. I hope that's not too difficult for him. But we also hope that you have a marvelously convenient week, and hope that you come back next time. Goodbye.